Okay, so remember, this is just for beginners. So, number one, security guard. Security guards are mainly for prevention. Police are for responding after the incident. So, guards are proactive, police are reactive. That's right out of the police books when I studied criminal justice. So, of course, police, there's some prevention, but they're really busy. So, security guards are the first preventers. As you're walking your rounds, you prevent crime just by your presence. It's a common saying for a security guard, if nothing happened, I did my job. But companies don't see it like that. They see you as a waste of money because nothing happened. Now, if you weren't there, a lot of things may happen because they don't have a security officer. But, when you're there, nothing happens because you prevent the crime. So they think you're a waste of money because nothing happens there. So that's just the way the business is. You got to have a mental stamina because it's a very dangerous job. Sure, most of the time you're walking around empty buildings and checking doors, but at any second it could get real dangerous. These days, you get shot just wearing a uniform. You may not want to wear your uniform to and from work. When you get to your job, put your shirt on. One of the main things you have to know how to do is how to handle an incident. Every business is going to be different. Every guard job will be different. What is an incident at your job? Are you dealing with a lot of people? Or are you dealing with an empty building with machines that can break down? So how to handle an incident. And that basically breaks down to what to do in the event of an emergency. Something goes wrong. Most likely, security guard job is stay calm and call 911. Most companies, that's all they expect you to do. So most guards are only expected to call 911 to report a situation. You're not expected to run into a burning building as a security guard. But, each job is different. Each person is different. Each guard is different. How you handle an incident, it's up to company policy and what you want to do on your own. Most guards are only expected to call 911 to report a situation. You're not expected to run into a burning building. Depends on your company policy. I remember seeing a show on Twin Towers, and the fella in charge of security ran back in. Normally, there's a lot of boredom. There's one video out there, the fella shows what it's like to be a security guard, and his video is right on. Most of the time, you're just sitting there, walking empty hallways, or sitting in a guard shack trying to look busy. Hopefully they'll let you listen to a radio or read. But some may be expected to fully control an incident and to make arrests, which can be very dangerous. Like when I was catching shoplifters, when you arrest someone for stealing, it may be tough to get them back in the store, but that was part of the job. You had to do it. One time I was downtown Cleveland, and it's Terminal Tower is the main building there. It used to be where the old trains would come into the Terminal Tower. You know, they had trains way back when. And now it's just a mall at the bottom of the skyscraper. And I was just walking around Cleveland applying for jobs. And I remember some incident must have happened, but there were a bunch of guards running through holding shotguns. That's a security guard job. You know, they weren't fooling around there. A few years ago, I was working a manual labor job, and the union workers there had caught a fella that came through the fence. They sneak onto the property and steal the metal, the old metal that's stored along the fence. You know, a couple of the union guys, blue collar guys, caught him, brought him into the guard shack, and as they were calling the police, the guy ran out the door and left. But I talked to them later. I said, that's not a good thing. You know, the guy could have turned around and stabbed you. Yeah, so it's just not worth it for some old rusty scrap metal. So, and you could die at work at any second for just walking through an empty building. You know, you're walking through checking doors, and a couple people have just broke in, you haven't seen them. They turn around, hit you in the head, or shoot you because they're in there stealing and you just happen to come across them. So if there's an active shooter, you're the first target. That just happened a couple weeks ago. Mass shooting, first one they shot was the guard at the door. You have to be prepared to use deadly force with a split-second decision. You know, somebody comes up to you, get ready to shoot you, and you got to pull your gun and shoot them. Split-second decision. Of course, you know, that must be the last resort. It's not first resort. But, you know, you only have a split second to make that decision. So that makes for a tough job. You know, you aren't stacking shelves in a department store. You know, even if you are not armed at your guard job, the person you bump into, they're breaking into the building, they'll still kill you. They don't care if you're armed or not. You're getting in their way, you could tell on them. So, tough job. I talked about this earlier. I've got these police training tapes. The police trainer out in LA, he says most shootings go down in 3 seconds. So you don't have a lot of time to think about it if somebody pulls a gun. And then you shoot someone, you are personally held responsible. You know, you'll be named personally if there's a lawsuit. You know, of course, your company will be named in the lawsuit too, but it's not just the company. You are named personally. You know, if there's a question as to whether the shooting was justified. So, you know, all I'm trying to say is it's a tough job. You know, most jobs, you know, you happen to run into something with a forklift or drop something on the floor, break it or something like that. You know, at this job, you may have to kill someone just because you're breaking in, stealing junk. You know. So you are just working a job, but people take it personally. They don't like you just because you're wearing a uniform. You do something to them, you have them arrested or give them a parking ticket or something like that. When I worked at college, I towed a lot of cars, one a week, because they parked in handicapped spots. I didn't like doing it, but it was a job. If I didn't do it, I'm not doing my job. So those persons that you arrest or tow their car or whatever, they may follow you home. If you got a wife and kids, that's not good, right? They'll smash your windshield, slash your tires, burn your house down, kill you. When I worked at that retailer, big company, close to 1,000 stores, they were expected to lose one manager a year by execution. Somebody would kidnap the manager, bring him back to the store, have him open the safe, and then they'd kill him. They expected to lose one manager a year. And that was normal. When I was there, not the store that I worked at, but in a store about 500 miles away or so, a manager was kidnapped at home. They brought him to the store, made him open the safe. Then they brought him to a dirt road, and the report said they made him kneel down, and then they shot him in the back of the head. So I'm just bringing that up because you're guarding a business. They may do that to you because they're there to break into the place, to steal from the place. You're there just checking doors, but they don't know that. So on top of all that, they'll probably start you on night shift and weekends. Probably the first 3 years you can be on nights and weekends. You'll probably be working all holidays for a few years. That's just the way it is. Low man on the totem pole. If you're single, working second shift is great because you can sleep all day. You go to work 3, 4 o'clock. You get off 11, 12 o'clock. You still got time to go out. So second shift is good for a single person. Night shift is tough. I've worked nights for years. You just got to get into a routine. Usually get to sleep as soon as you can in the morning. You get off at 7 or 8. Get home and get to bed by 9. Try to sleep till 3, 4, and then get up and try to have a normal day until you go to work at midnight. Maybe get a quick nap before you go in. When I was in charge, I would let the guys take naps. Most of the time it was pretty slow. So if a fellow was tired, didn't get sleep, I just tell him, go down to that room and take a quick 15-minute nap. We'll come get you if we need you. Sure, most companies won't allow that, but if a guard's tired and if they're carrying a gun, I'd rather have them take a quick cat nap and be refreshed the rest of the night than to be so tired they're just groggy. A small little 15-minute nap will take care of it. If you can't do that at your job, take a quick nap at lunchtime. Go sit on the toilet and take a quick nap. I know it's not a good thing to do, but night shift can be tough. Security work, it's high turnover. if you're working somewhere as a guard, most likely you'll be training a guard at some point. My experience was I was training a new guard every other week. There was always someone new. When I was in retail, I was actually one of their main training stores. I think they had 3 training stores, and I would get like a trainee once a year. They had like a 3-month training period for loss prevention, but it would be closer to like 4 to 6 months. Each person is different, so it would be, I think they said 3 to 4 months, but sometimes it would be a little longer. Most training of new guards, they walk around the business a couple times with you, and that's your training. When I worked a couple colleges as campus security, and it takes probably a good month, just to get the hang of the buildings. You're probably looking at 20, 30 buildings at each college. And you got to learn the names of the buildings, the locations of the buildings, where the doors are, where all the maintenance rooms are, the boiler rooms are. It takes at least a month or more to really know your way around. First step is just learning how to make your round there. Usually you have to go in and punch those detex clocks. We'll talk about that more later on. But hopefully they'll already have some training, right? They won't be coming from a department store to you. But that's very possible. They have no security experience at all, and then they get a job as a security guard. So don't be surprised if you work there for a few months and all of a sudden you're training someone. For me, because I had college, wherever I worked, I always became the trainer. It kind of became my shtick, and it stuck with me my whole life. I tried to get out of it a few times, but when I'm between jobs, I'll check out the web posts. I can always get a teaching job, because I've been training people forever. And most of the teaching jobs don't pay that great, and they're usually part-time and only last a few months. Some are good, some aren't. As a security guard, you may be new yourself, and you could be training new people within months. So I looked around a little bit for like numbers. 300,000 guards in California, in one state, and those were the newest numbers that I could find. There's almost 18,000 police agencies in the United States. That's like one per city, almost, right? Most cities have their own police department. Not all, but most. There's 1 million plus local, state, federal officers and civilians. So 1 million people or more working in some type of law enforcement. So what's my point here? There's 300,000 guards just in California. 1 million law enforcement. So, just in California, that's 1/3 of the 1 million. So, this doesn't include the guards. So the security guard business is huge. If you look at it in these terms, there's only 1 million cops. That's including all the secretaries and things like that too. But there's 300,000 guards just in California. So it's a very big business, which is good for us because there's a lot of jobs. There should be a lot of room to move up, right? Depending on where you work. That's why we got to get the business improved so it's worth staying in. Okay, so basic types of guards. Really just about any business that you can think of. There's all different types. But what I recommend is to look for one of the better guard jobs. Look for a clean environment. I talked about the chemical factory. I walked around an inch of white dust. I have no idea what that dust was, but couldn't have been good. So look for a clean environment, nice clean office, something that's low in danger. I watched one video. The guy said he went to relieve the person on duty, and they hopped in the car and left as soon as they could because the place was so dangerous. That's funny. So just to run through some of these here, I'm sure there's more types, but these are the ones that I could think of. Corporate security, industrial security. What would be the difference here? This is like just guarding businesses and offices and things like that, where this would be more based on like factories and things like that. I worked one place where they had big office part in the front of the building, and the back of the building was all the factories. Hotel security is supposed to be a good business to get into. Hospital security is big now. There's stadiums, nursing homes and healthcare, retail loss prevention. Not only stores, but they have warehouses and things like that too. Campus security guard. Practically every college has guards. One school that I went to part-time in my later years, their campus police were actually policemen. They took the same training as our state police do. Nightclub security, not just bouncers, but you're actually security guards. Apartment buildings, huge skyscraper type things, Mall security, that's really big now. They're trying to clean up the malls. Casino security, that's highly specialized. You got to understand how the dealers work and things like that. From what I've heard, they have their own training. Airport and TSA, last I knew, they're always running ads. There's museums, art museums type of thing. Construction sites, bank guards, armored car guards, church guards, concerts, huge stadiums, baseball stadiums, football stadiums, bodyguards, strike guard. You don't hear about strikes that much, but some companies may still have strikes. Special event security, such as local carnivals and things like that, etc., etc. I'm sure you can probably name a few more. Going back to what I said earlier, try and find someplace safe. These two places, they may not be too safe. But like if you get to like a big apartment building, depending, if it's an upscale place, there's probably not much to do. walk around, check the doors, make sure there's no fires in the basement and the hallways and things like that, fairly safe. Work in a garden, museum, or a construction site at night when there's no one there. That's somewhat safe as compared to guarding a bank. So that's what I'm talking about. Try and find someplace that's fairly safe. As a guard, there's different ways of employment. You may be employed directly by the business. You work for the XYZ company, and you are hired by the XYZ company to be their guard. What's real common is you may be employed by a security guard company. That company has a contract with XYZ business. Okay? So this company hires you, and then you work at that business, the XYZ business, guarding their business, but you're actually an employee of the security guard company who has the contract with the business. That makes it tough because this company is your boss. But these people, they think they're your boss too. So you're dealing with both places. And what happens is these people make the rules, right? And then you're working for this company, you're paid to enforce the rules that these people created. But lots of times these people, even though they created the rules, they don't want them enforced. Simple things as locking doors and locking windows and keeping fire doors shut and things like that. They may not want to do that because it's just a pain. They don't want to bother. So even though it's in your rule book that you have to keep these doors closed, they really don't want you to. So I've bumped into that type of thing a lot. That's one of the main reasons why I got out of it, because even the businesses who hire you to make their place safe, they don't want you to enforce the rules that help make the place safe. Most things are pretty silly. Like one store I worked at, they wanted to keep the fitting room doors locked so shoplifters couldn't go in there, right? Well, the manager of the store, his company made the policy to keep the doors locked. In actuality, they didn't want to lock the doors because every time somebody tried something on, they had to have an employee go over and unlock the door. It took too much time. And I was constantly going back and forth and, hey, you got to lock them doors. And they didn't actually come out and say, hey, just look the other way, don't bother with it, but they kind of snicker. So each job is different, but really the main duties are very similar. Check the place out and lock the doors and close the windows. Don't allow a company to treat you as a glorified gopher. Sometimes you're working for a small company, you aren't doing nothing, so the owner of the business will have you doing errands, like going out and getting his takeout lunch. But I suppose that's not a bad gig if you can get it. He's paying for you, right? Even though that type of thing is not in your job description. So you kind of got to work around that. He's paying your salary, so you kind of got to do what he says, but you're there to guard the place, and he's got you running around, going to the store, so that's rare. Sometimes you stand for 8 hours. Stand there at a door, guard a door for 8 hours. Sometimes you walk for 8 hours. Usually it's a little of both. Each job is going to be different. You may be paid to sit there and watch cameras all night. Well, then you're sitting there for 8 hours. You may be paid to make rounds. Like I worked one college. Each guard made 3 rounds a night. You got to walk to college. A round would take about an hour and a half, hour 45 minutes. So that's 2 hours, 2, 4, 6. So out of an 8-hour shift, you're walking 6 hours. So you got to have good shoes, right? It's okay if it's not raining or snowing. But I remember making rounds in wind chill of minus 30. You'd go from one building to another and stay there for a while. On those nights, we were lucky to make like one round. Walk from one building, go to the next one, hang out there for a half hour or so, go over to the next building, hang out there half hour or so. We were kind of lenient there, so we could do that type of thing, but minus 30 wind chill. So sometimes you sit 8 hours in a guardhouse. I've sat in some really terrible guard houses. One place I worked, they just built a brand new one. Air conditioned, got your own restroom, So each business is different. If you're sitting 8 hours a day, be sure to go to the gym, almost daily, and get on the treadmill and walk and jog 45 minutes. That way it'll keep you in shape. These days, sometimes you sit for 8 hours in a guardhouse watching security cameras. You see something happen on a camera, you find a problem and call 911 or the company officials, and then you write an incident report on it. My experience, walk around, locking doors, checking windows, checking roofs, get up on the roof to make sure there's no water buildup, because if the water builds up, the roof caves in. You got to turn off the lights. Sometimes you got to turn on the lights in the morning. You got to open the doors in the morning before the employees show up. You got to close gates when they leave and open gates in the morning or shift change, Sometimes these gates are huge, it's not one little gate you swing open with one little finger. You really got to manhandle these gates. These days, a lot of them are powered. You just press a button. What I would do there is I'd do minor maintenance. If a gate's not working right, bring a pair of pliers in, try to fix it and oil it up so it moves a little better. I used to carry an Allen wrench, a small set on my duty belt, because I was always locking doors with the Allen wrenches. And I did minor maintenance on locks because the locks wouldn't work, or they were real hard to lock. This turning off lights, that sounds simple, but when you walk into a building and there's a light panel on every floor, you got to go over, flip all these lights. You have to know which ones to turn off. You can't just turn off everything, because then you're turning off the fire alarms and everything else too. Usually they have them marked, like they'll have like a little white mark or red mark by the ones that you turn off and on. But just learning where the light panels are is tough. It may take a couple weeks or a couple months to learn where all these things are. So here, you have to become familiar with the building's electric panel. Even if you don't have to turn the lights off and on, you should know where they are, right? Lights are off when you get there. Well, what if something happened? You got to go there and turn the lights on for the police, You have to know where things are. You have to know where the fire alarms are, What's that bell going off? I don't know. It's over there somewhere, You got to know where the fire alarms are, how to turn them off and on, Always know where the boiler rooms are, These boilers, it may not sound like that big of a deal to you, but if a boiler blows up, I think I worked at one place. They said that boiler could go through 6 floors if it went straight up. That's how much power there is if it explodes. It goes up 6 floors. So you don't want to be in the room, you know. Usually there's a meter. You go in, check the meter, make sure there's not too much pressure. And there's usually an alarm. So usually in these boiler rooms, there's an alarm. If there's something going wrong with the boiler, there's too much pressure, the alarm will be going off. As soon as you walk in the room, you'll hear the alarm. So watching gates, checking fence lines, the property perimeter. Most of the time, you're checking buildings. Lots of places you log trucks in, you log trucks out, you check employees in, you check salesmen in, you have them sign in, you have them sign out. You know, it sounds like no big deal, but some employees don't want to be bothered. You know, especially the union people, they just don't want to bother with you. But that's your job, you have to do it. Fire prevention, you got to look for fires. Fire prevention, you got to look for fires, check fire extinguishers. One factory I worked at as a guard years before I was there, their warehouse burnt down. There was a big building in the back. They said it had burnt down, and when the people went back there to fight the fire, they had hoses inside the building, fire hoses, but they pulled them off the rack, got water pressure. The hoses were so old they just blew up because they were old and rotten, and the fire extinguishers were so old no one ever checked them, nothing sprayed out, so things were so bad there the building just burned down. And it was a big building too. It was probably the size of a football field. That's the security guard job. You go around, you check the fire extinguishers once a month. There's a little tag on them, you know. You put a little check mark or punch it or something like that to show that you checked it. Checking boilers, boiler alarms, large factories with dangerous equipment. I worked one place where they normally work 3 shifts, right? They made parts for cars. And there was one big assembly line paint vat, I guess you would call it, where the parts would come down the assembly line, be dunked in the vat of paint, and then they'd come out the other side, right? Well, when the place was shut down, that paint vat had to be kept running. It had to be kept stirring. And one of our main jobs was to make sure that that thing that stirred up the paint didn't shut off. Because if it shut off, it would destroy all the paint. So that was one of the important things there. Normally, things like that are real important, you know, the union or company people will come in and check it. But sometimes not. You know, if it's a big holiday, they don't want to be bothered. That's what you're there for. Lots of stuff is on clipboards. You know, I worked one place, we had 50 clipboards on the walls, depending on what was happening. You know, one for trucks, one for salespeople, one for employees, one for incidents. You know, you name it, there was a clipboard for it. These days, everything is computerized. You know, Excel spreadsheets. If you don't know what Excel is, that's just like Microsoft Office. That's one of the programs in Microsoft Office. You don't need to be an expert at that type of thing, but you know how to click on it and enter in something. They may want you to do that. So you might want to take a course on Microsoft Office and Excel, or watch a few videos. You know, you don't need to be a genius at Excel. Seems like I've seen a lot of job posts where they say must be able to must be computer literate, you know, be able to use a mouse and how to log on to the computer and use the basics. So just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about here, like if I go here and I start up Excel, where would Excel be here? Microsoft Office, and then here's Excel. This is the older version, but it's all the same stuff. It starts up Excel. So like this is what they call a spreadsheet. You know, like each one of these squares you may enter something. Like you would click on this cell and say you checked it at 10 p.m. That's how easy it is. Or you click here and you say, yes, I checked it. So that's what I mean by Excel. Most likely they'll have some type of specialized application. All you see is like the front end. You might see a gray screen where you enter in boxes, But I've seen a lot of job ads where they say must be able to use Office. So Excel is one of them. And then Word, Microsoft Word. Word is just a blank piece of paper. So we go Microsoft Office, Microsoft Word. Like this is a blank piece of paper, and then you just type in stuff. So you go on Saturday, December 1st, 2018, such and such happened. The basics of Word, Okay, so here's a few things that I wanted to show you. This keeping track of what a security guard does. This would be like entering information into Excel, but they have like a fancy front end that you would enter stuff. This would be like the more modern form of clipboards. So here they're saying you can use your phone to run these applications. So here's some YouTube videos, and then here's another program that guards use. It's called QR Patrol. And then here's another one called OCCLY. So if you want, you can go ahead and watch these. I have to be careful with what I show in my videos because of the copyright stuff. I don't know what I can and can't do. So this is just a general website. There shouldn't be a problem with that, but I don't know if I'm actually allowed to run other YouTube videos, so you can go ahead and watch through those. So I think these things are pretty cool. if you're computer literate, you know, if you're still having a hard time using a mouse, these things may be kind of tough, you know. Yeah, I taught at a small tech school for a while, and these guys were, or these people were learning high-level Microsoft Server stuff. And one of the fellows said to me once, he goes, "You have to remember, we know how to turn on a computer, and we might know how to put things on eBay." And that was the extent of their computer knowledge. And I'm walking in there trying to teach them high-level computer stuff. You know, I'm just doing what I was told, you know, go in and teach this book. And it was a tough task. So, okay, so we'll go ahead and stop there. Next time we'll start with this security guard training. Okay, see ya.